Okay, this is a single take commentary of the run you are about to watch, so you'll get to see what I'm like when I'm like this and I don't fucking cut every time I have a pause in my sentences. It's gonna be annoying, I'm sorry. I can't be bothered to do it fucking edited. Whatever. Anyway, so this commentary is mostly gonna be like less about the run, because the run is, despite the complexity of the hero, pretty simple, and more about my thoughts of the hero and the general strategies I'm using. But you start the run with ice, and you just get faster attacking. You might not need it if you have better ice placement, but I wanted this ice placement specifically to catch ceramics that are leaking at the end. And then once you get the ice, you just save to Corvus. And I think Corvus is the best hero in the game. That wasn't my thoughts when I was doing this. I thought he was just like really good, like S tier. But now seeing that people have gotten a 2TC with literally just Corvus and a 000 Dart Monkey without buying Corvus upgrades at all, I think this is the best hero in the game, and I don't even think it's like that big of a question. Brickle might be better, but I think he is better than Geraldo, and maybe better than Brickle. He's a definite S tier though. I think there's no question about that. His ability to save is insane. He can optimize your cash spending so well. And this is on beginner maps where his leveling is terrible. On expert maps, I think he's even stronger than he is on beginner maps. So anyway, we place Corvus at the front. I don't know why I didn't buy level 2 there. I probably should have. And one thing you'll notice with this run is I use a ton of nourishment. I think optimally to play with Corvus, you need to use nourishment and rush him to the highest level you can as fast as possible. Because Corvus is not that strong at low levels. You really want to get him leveled up quickly. You want to get access to all his spells as early as possible. Especially Recover, which will unlock at level 10. And because I think Recover is straight up one of his best spells, if not the best. Well, in this particular run, Aggression was the best spell, but that was because of a bug that I'll explain later when it becomes relevant. I guess while early game is going on, there's nothing really interesting happening. It's just spamming nourishment and levels. I'll run you through my thoughts on each of the spells. I think Spear is one of the best. I think it's really broken, especially obviously against multi-target enemies. Spear does a ton of damage, and pairing it with Aggression is even better. Spear Aggression is a great combo. On that topic, Aggression is a pretty strong spell. In this update, it was bugged to give you really high attack speed, and I'll talk more about that later. It's been patched, so don't expect to be using it. This hero in general was really bugged this update. There's going to be more relevant ones that I'll talk about in the run. But if you want to, there is still a bug with Aggression where if you mash Aggression and dismiss, you get a slight attack speed increase, but it's not nearly as big as the bug I used in this run. Soul Harvest, his level 3 ability, is also really good. It's good to pair with Nourishment just for, getting levels up quickly. I think all of his abilities are really strong, even though they kind of do the same thing. I'm a little disappointed about that, but I get why they did it. But for the functional use cases there's almost no difference between the level 3 and the level 10. I think the third spell is Malevolence, which I think is completely useless, unless the recent hotfix that gave it a buff actually does anything. I think Malevolence is there's no reason to use it. Storm I didn't give a lot of credit to originally, but this run kind of taught me that it has some decent use in the early game and mid game, mainly for Moab damage. But once your hero gets strong enough to start handling Moabs on its own, Storm becomes irrelevant. There's no reason to use it. Repel is I only really see it useful once it starts being able to push back Moabs. In this patch, it had Infinite Pierce, which is crazy. I have no idea why they thought that was a good idea. Could you imagine if, Moab Shove or Moab Press had literally Infinite Pierce? That would be insane. So it had an Infinite Pierce here. It no longer has that, but I still think it's a really powerful spell. Especially if you're using Spear. Repel, especially Repel Freeze, is huge. It just clumps everything together, and you can also try and use Repel Freeze to, clump as much stuff together for Overload. I didn't do that in this run, but that is something you could try doing. Echo is a pretty good ability, but I usually like to use Echo in combination with Ancestral Might to do insane Moab damage. It basically deletes around 98. I don't even know what it's called because I never use it, but the spell that makes a hero move faster is entirely useless. I don't know why you would ever use that. Trample is pretty bad, but I use it once here to deal with a big purple wave that I didn't know what else to do with because Corvus never gets purple detection on his own. I think Corvus is crazy with a MIB. He might be one of the few use cases where you actually would aim opt for a mid instead of like a Glue Storm. I already talked about Freeze being really good. I don't really think there's a big use case for the Fire. I never used it in this run. I never had a need for it. Ancestral Might, I think, is really strong. Really powerful ability. If you're ever dealing with like big amounts of Moabs and ZOMGs, it just does so much Moab damage. I think they reduced it in the latest patch. Or no, they reduced the Pierce. They reduced the Pierce of Ancestral Might, but its Moab damage still exists. And finally, Overload. I didn't use Overload in this run, but I know it's really strong, and in the latest patch, they gave it layer skipping, which is big. That's huge. That makes it even stronger than it used to be. What is it called? Nourishment is insane. It is by far what makes this hero so broken. The fact that you can level up so fast with Nourishment. Not as fast as, obviously, like Quincy or something, or Geraldo, but Nourishment is the lifeblood of this hero. You need to be using Nourishment as often as you possibly can if you want to maximize this hero's potential. It's super important. Mana Shield works in Chimps, but it is not broken like you'd think it would be. I don't think you should be using Mana Shield unless like you specifically need to tank a camo in the early game, or if you want to catch a ceramic late game. But more often than not, it's best to just go home and come back. It might have more applications in Black Border runs, but if you're not doing a Black Border, there's like, I don't really see a good reason to use the Mana Shield. Vision is, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Use it when you need to see camos. Vision does have the added benefit of letting Soul Harvest work on camo balloons, which I use a lot in this run. If you need to like deal with DDTs, obviously there's not enough magic to use Ancestral Might and Echo. So what you could do is use Vision, Soul Harvest, and then Ancestral Might Echo to kill the DDTs, which I do in basically every DDT round. So that's a really nice interaction. And then finally, Recover is maybe his best ability. It is super broken. It has the nice benefit of automatically deactivating every spell with a cooldown. Or I think every spell in general, it deactivates instantly. And it removes the spirit, which means if you need to, if there's like, I don't know, BFBs and you need to stall for an ability to come back up, the fact that Recover takes away the spirit is actually a benefit rather than a hindrance, because it lets you have way more time for your abilities to come up. Recovery is crazy strong, and I use it all the time in this run. So that was basically all the spells, and you see we got through the Moab there. And now we're on to the mid-game, where I'm going to move Corvus over to the right side, because he'll end up being stronger here throughout the course of the run. This is where he'll get more utility out of his Harvest, which is really the only thing that positioning matters with this hero, is with the other two abilities. I really wanted to do Snowstorm for this 2TC, but as you'll see later, I couldn't do round 95. I needed the extended freeze time of Absolute Zero, but I do think with a better player, Snowstorm is definitely possible. I mean, there's a 2TC with Corvus and an unupgraded Dart Monkey, so that basically means anything that does damage on round 6 and is placeable for round 6 is a 2TC with Corvus. The thought behind Ice for me with this run is Corvus's biggest weakness is Super Ceramics and DDTs, and I thought Absolute Zero is the best to cover that, as well as having the ability to stall a very long time for spells to come off cooldown would help. Like you can see here, I could, if I wanted to, I could delay and I should have. I could have delayed Vision by just, or not used it at all probably. I think I could have just let the Ice kill all of those camos there, but I didn't. The hero, I think, only has bad synergies with other towers that require constant micro, like Plasma Accelerator. You always have to be repositioning it. So that's pretty, I think, bad synergy with Corvus just because it's too much. You might not have time to micro both of them optimally. There was another tower I was thinking of, Beast Handler. Beast Handler might be bad if you need to do constant repositioning. But that one is not as bad because I think there's some Beast Handler scenarios where you don't need to micro it and you can spend more time on Corvus. Besides, you don't, with the repositioning cooldown, that might give you enough time actually to pay more attention to Corvus's spells if you're quick with it. There was a bunch of retries, especially round 95. Round 95 took me by far the longest time because I was trying to do it with Snowstorm. But once I upgraded to Absolute Zero, it probably only took me 2 tries. You can see here the insane power of Spear. I probably should have held it longer. I forgot there was a second wave on this round of Rainbows. A lot of this here is learning how to maximize the use of every time you have to use a spell. The mana is a resource, and you want to use it to save money as much as you can. Zebras, this run, ended up being kind of a nuisance in the early game, interestingly enough, which makes sense. Zebras and White Balloons obviously do not get frozen by Absolute Zero. or by Snowstorm. I know the ability freezes them, and Absolute Zero might freeze them with its main attack. I actually don't know. I don't use this tower a whole lot. Because you here use Storm to do Moab damage. The Moab damage isn't even that great, honestly. But I don't really have any other choices. I don't have anything else that does Moab damage for the early game. I think they should let you dismiss spells between rounds, but maybe that was too broken, and they decided to go against it. I mean, I could see why, but it would be a really nice quality of life thing, because it would you know, it help maximize mana save up if you could dismiss between rounds. This ability that's level 10, I mean, while it functions differently from the level 3, I think functionally it's the exact same, like use case wise. You just use it to get mana back. You still have to time it when there's a bunch of balloons in range. The only difference is it lasts a little longer, so the timing isn't as strict, but it's still the same kind of thing. But the two abilities are really useful as well for keeping your toggle spells up for longer periods of time. Which, as you'll see in some rounds, lets me keep like Storm Aggression up for basically the entire round. I've been seeing people say the mana drain is too much, or the mana pool is too small, but I completely disagree with that. I think the mana pool is very large, and definitely enough. Right here, I dark shifted to the front because I needed to get the harvest on this mob as fast as possible to get a vision and spear up to deal with these camo zebras. Obviously the ice tower is not going to be able to deal with these for me. Then I needed to use level 10 to get enough camo back so I could quickly get back to the front and switch from spear to storm. From what I can tell with aggression, it doesn't seem to increase the attack speed of the storm spell. But I can't tell if that was because it was bugged this update, because it also didn't seem to increase the attack speed of the spirit either, just the damage. I really can't tell if it's just the way aggression's supposed to work or if it's because it was bugged. I'm gonna go ahead and say it was because it was bugged, because it feel like it should have that synergy, but it just doesn't seem to. Most of these mid-game rounds are basically the same, so I'll probably be skipping a lot of them. It's mostly just, you know, use spear if I get overwhelmed, use storm if there's Moabs, maybe aggression if storm isn't enough, spam nourishment, and use recovery as much as I can. You basically want to use nourishment every time it's full or near full. It's a waste to use it when it's empty. We're getting to the point where the base spirit is getting pretty strong and it can start to handle Moabs on its own. F Moabs are still a little bit of an issue, but base Moabs, it can take them by itself as long as there's no other balloons in the way. Despite Corvus's difficulty in dealing with balloons without spells, with spells, it's just easy. I mean, you just spear and aggression on 63 and you're fine. And if you harvest any one of the 3 ceramic ways, it will instantly fill the mana bar. I'd say with this run, the mid-game was probably the hardest part. I think without the bug that I had for the late game would have definitely been harder. Corvus is at the point now where he's one-shotting rainbows, which is really nice. That helps with dealing with groups. But ceramics aren't one-shotted yet, so that's still an issue. I would commentate the full run, but it's over an hour, and going into specifics of Corvus micro isn't something I really feel like doing right now. I mean, obviously everyone's going to require micro. It's a micro hero. This hero, it really is a check on how good you are at the game. If you don't do micro, you're not going to succeed with this hero. But if you do micro, this is like the best hero in the game, I think. But I like that he's not wildly broken. He's not like an S+2 hero. He sits comfortably with Brickle and Geraldo and Adora, but he's not wildly above them all. And I think that's the right direction you should have with a hero this micro heavy, because if you have a bad hero that's micro heavy, no one's going to use it because there's no point. I think if you're going to make a hero have this much micro, you should make them good. So I think this is the right direction for Corvus. I don't think he needs to be nerfed that much further. Him having a 2TC with the 000 Dart Monkey is kind of ridiculous, and maybe he should get nerfed slightly. But I think Ninja Kiwi should try to keep him in S tier, just because of how high his skill ceiling is. He doesn't make the game free. I do also want to talk about the increased price of Corvus, as well as the price of Map Editor. I understand their reasoning for making it a wall for experienced players, but I think it was the complete wrong approach if they were going to go about doing it that way. I don't think it was a good idea. For one, 7k monkey money is not that hard to get. Casual players are going to have 7k monkey money. It really doesn't take that long to get 7k monkey money. That's like beating like 3 or 4 beginner maps. Like black bordering 3 or 4 beginner maps. It's really not that hard. Maybe not 3 or 4, maybe more than that, but still. If you've blackboarded every beginner map, you have way more than 7k monkey money at your disposal to buy a hero with. And blackboarding every beginner map is just using Apache Prime on all of them. I think it was the wrong way to go about it, although I think they should try and make sure casuals don't get accidentally sucked into using him first. Maybe a warning that the hero is very complicated and isn't best for new players would be good, some sort of disclaimer. And as for map editor, I don't think they should have tried to gatekeep casual players at all. Clearly it didn't even work, because there's plenty of maps that scream casual player in map editor, much more than the ones that don't. So I think, honestly, there's no point in having map editor be behind an in-game paywall. It makes no sense to me. A lot of people defend the decision, but I disagree with it. They just took what Ninja Kiwi explained it with at face value, rather than considering how effective the solution would actually be. I think Corvus shouldn't be behind an increased paywall, but should have some kind of disclaimer, and map editor should just be open to everyone. Having it behind, or trying to gatekeep casuals from map editor was crazy to me. I don't understand why that was, like, considered normal. You can see now in the 70s that we stopped using Storm altogether in favor of just letting Corvus's Spirit do all the work. Now that Corvus's Spirit does enough damage, Spear and just the base Spirit are enough to deal with Moabs. Some rounds were surprisingly hard for me, like this round, the Regros, I actually had to retry a couple times because the Regros just were surprisingly difficult to handle. Like, I'd never had trouble on a round like 72 before, but in this run it required a restart or two. And I can take opportunities on rounds like these that are slow, where it's just dealing with 2 BFBs to, you know, go for nourishment and for mana farming. But you can see Corvus is already level 15 on round 74, and for a hero that levels this slowly, that's really good. You can tell now Corvus is getting very strong at his higher levels. Definitely outshining a lot of other heroes when they're around level 15. Around 76, I decided to stall for nourishment and then freeze, see how long I could let it go, use the ability, and then spear to finish it off. You can see now the hero is one-shotting ceramics, and this is when it starts to get really good. Around 78 for the camo wave, we just vision spear, and I'll deal with all of it. Vision decamoing balloons is really just the cherry on top, I think. Round 79 was actually a bigger problem than I anticipated it being, because Snowstorm turns all of the rainbows into zebras, which it obviously cannot freeze. We get level 17 on round 79, and Corvus is getting very strong now, being able to handle 4 to 5 BFBs just with the base spirit. Moving on to round 80, this is the first instance where the bug activates, although I didn't actually notice it at the time. So I casted Aggression, you know, because I thought it was necessary to beat the bad. I noticed it was doing pretty good damage, so at some point I decided to dismiss it. And when I do, you can see that when I dismiss it, the damage starts going way faster. Right here, I dismiss, and you can see way faster damage intervals. And this is a bug I was talking about earlier. Aggression, during this patch 40.0, for whatever reason, seemed to apply a kind of random attack speed value to the spirit if you dismiss aggression before letting it end naturally. And it only worked when nothing else was active, and I mean, sometimes that attack speed value could be like 5x, so it would be an enormous attack speed buff, letting it, as you'll see later, solo the bad layer with just the base spirit, which is crazy strong. This bug made the late game significantly easier than it was supposed to be, and it's what made this run like possible to do in literally 2 attempts of me playing it. For this run I casted Overload. It was underwhelming at this time because this was before they patched in the layer skipping for it. In 40.0, Overload didn't layer skip. It probably would have been better there to just spear. It would have been less mana, and it would have done more damage. You can see there, as things are about to exit, Repel and Freeze are a great combo. Just pushing everything back. For some reason I had Infinite Pierce, I still don't know why. Used Echo Hansen 82 just to clear it out. Spear probably would have been enough, but, you know. This round is a really good round to stall, so I went for Recover immediately to try and get nourishment back up as fast as I could. If you don't like the cuts and commentary in this and you just want to see the full run, I'll be providing a link to the unedited run. in the comments, the pinned comment, as well as in the description for those of you who just want to see the full unedited run, but it's pretty boring. This run as well, you'll be able to see me realize, you'll see it right now. You can tell the spirit is attacking way faster than it's supposed to. You can see how fast the damage ticks up. This was how powerful the bug was. This is what made the late game so easy to deal with. Now on run 86, we're at level 19, getting pretty close to level 20, and level 20 before around 90 is just crazy. So you get a big increase to your spirit's base damage, an important one, especially for the late game when Super Ceramics just have so much health. Corvus really struggles against Super Ceramics and DDTs, so being able to get that damage increase is a big deal, because then you really only have to worry about DDTs, and that's why I don't use hands for a lot of the late game rounds, because I basically need to save the hands for the DDTs. Now we have level 20, so his damage will be even crazier. I mean, Corvus being able to solo round 87 is wild, like with just the base spirit. Round 88, I used the aggression bug again, because for some reason it also seemed to just randomly deactivate, and that was the part I never figured out why. I could never figure out why it would randomly stop, why the attack speed would randomly just go away. It wasn't correlated to retrying last round, it wasn't correlated to spell usage, aside from aggression obviously. I could never figure it out. And Ninja Kiwi has since patched the bug, so I guess we'll never really know. In the 90s is where we start requiring spells again, just with the insane density, as well as DD2's Corvus requires the addition of spells. Here, we use Vision and do the trick I told you with Harvest and then Echo Hands, and that hopefully handles DDTs for all the rounds. With 95 being the only real tight timing in the run. This is a great recover round. With all these ceramics, you have so much time to stall. Use the bug here, or at least try to. It was kind of inconsistent. I could never really figure out why sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. Round 92 is pretty simple. I just let Corvus deal with all of the F Moabs. But when it got to be a little bit scary, I used Spear to try and cut down on the amount of F mobs, and also so Corvus could get a little bit more damage in on the ZOMGs before they got too far. Disabled Spear once all of the F mobs were gone to save on mana as well, just because I thought I'd need it for 93, which I did. You can see here that Corvus has very little problem dealing with these really high HP targets, just because of how much sheer damage the attack speed gives him. I may go for the Corvus Dart 1TC, but it seems very hard to do, especially now that this bug has been patched. But I do know it's still possible, so I might as well. This hero is super fun to use. I mean, probably the most entertaining hero Ninja Kiwi's added to the game. Like, the amount of stuff and challenges you can do with him is crazy. Like, I've been thinking maybe doing a Corvus with no abilities challenge and just relying on the mana he gets from Haunting Bloons would be an interesting idea. It would make mana a much more limited resource. I'd have to be very smart with its usage. 94 is a good candidate to use Spear on. Very high bloom density, so Spear is going to do a ton of damage. And I had Freeze at the ready just in case things made it too far. Round 95 here required me to buy Absolute Zero. There was nothing I could do to avoid that. Well, there probably was, but I wasn't that good yet. I'm still probably not that good. But Absolute Zero's Huge Pierce does let me save up Vision. I don't have to use Vision immediately. I don't have to use Trample either. I just have to wait for the DDTs to come on time. And while I'd like to tell you that I planned this Absolute Zero ability to be the right timing, I just got lucky. I had planned to use Echo and Overload, or Echo, Hands, and Overload, but my timing ended up being such that I could just take out all the DDTs with just the hands, which I got very lucky on. Let me save a ton of mana for round 96. Round 96 is a good recovery round because of how slow the balloons are. I could just wait until the fortified Moabs get far, and Absolute Zero then to give me even more time on my recovery. Repel here was really good for keeping these F Moabs close by. It kept them right by the BFBs and let me clump up all of the damage in one spot. But when the ceramics snuck through, it started to get a little bit too much to handle. So I used the level 10 ability and the Echo Hands to handle the entire rest of the round. I started off round 97 realizing that my hero had lost its aggression bonus damage, so I just tried to activate the bug again and got it to work. It definitely took a couple tries though, but here you can see the damage going up way faster than normal. I actually planned to make a video showcasing this bug, but Ninja Kiwi actually uploaded the patch while I was midway through recording. Round 98 was pretty simple. I just wait and let the balloons get in range. I use Spear to try and deal with all of the FBFBs, but eventually I just decide that Spear is unnecessary and I just end up using the Echo Hands to clear out the round. I was a little worried about not having the Echo Hands for round 99, but right here I was smart and made sure to use Recovery and let the Absolute Zero stall out these ceramics so I would have it up for round 99. Going into round 99 with near full mana basically guaranteed the victory at this point. I just needed to wait for the DDTs to come in range and Absolute Zero to stall for the abilities while using Vision, level 10 ability, and then Echo Hands to get the full mana. Round 100 was probably the easiest round of the entire run. I literally just let the Spirit go to town, and you can see this bug actually has enough damage to take down the entire bad layer with just the Spirit. I mean, the damage is crazy high. Once the bat is in its final damage stage, I have the spell menu ready to cast the spells required to handle the DDTs, and later the ZOMGs that come after that. I cast Recovery immediately after the DDTs die to get my hands back and use Absolute Zero to stall the ZOMGs as long as I possibly can. Now that I have Ancestral Might and Echo, I just wait for the ZOMGs to get in range before using my level 10 ability to get all the mana I need in order to cast Echo and Ancestral Might to finish off round 100.